Ben Aziz, I remember you well. Your death now seems a convention of such an existence. Neither blade, nor tooth, nor your uncommitted claws could hold you to living. Speak then, my brother. Tell me, how does eternal contemplation torture a twisted soul?
If we really want to animate this and animate this well, the animator would be doing what I did now, all right? I already have all this, but somebody else would have done this and given these drawings in a much better state to the animator, right? So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to take this layout drawing here, and I'm going to make a new drawing called a layout. So let's talk about what we did. We did a drawing here and a kind of ideal framing that I wanted. So I tidied up, I created a layout drawing. Let's talk about, even at this early stage, what's going on here, right? The head is literally moving in a circle, right? It's literally doing this. Watch it. Comes up, right? Turns away, nodding to itself, all right? But let's look at the arc in its rawest form, without the little head nod that'll happen. The secondary arc, okay, the secondary action, another animation law. The head is simply going back around in a circle. How do I break a second up? Simple. We break that second up in half, that's 12 frames. We break it up in quarters, that's 6 frames. And anywhere between is 4 or 8, right? And then 4 or 8 between there, right? And then if you want to extend the 8 frame, it's nice to just think of 10 frame slow-ins, right? Just under. Why 10 frames and why not a 12 frame slow-in? Because sometimes if you slow in too much, you get an overly boiling line, you get a weird strobe if you got nowhere to go. So it's nice to hold a drawing for 4 frames, which is just under a quarter of a second, which is 6 frames, right? This here is a golden formula for managing time in your head. So, but now we've talked about squash and stretch in the face and how the rest of the face moves in relation to those mouth movements, those particular things. And we want them all to relate to each other, right? And even here, I've drawn them without them really relating, right? I haven't thought about them relating, but you can see that they still somehow relate, right? His eyes are a little bit crazy, is a little bit too much, but they all relate pretty good. So, but now we've talked about squash and stretch in the face and how the rest of the face moves in relation to those mouth movements, those particular things. And we want them all to relate to each other, right? And even here, I've drawn them without them really relating, right? I haven't thought about them relating, but you can see that they still somehow relate, right? His eyes are a little bit crazy, is a little bit too much, but they all relate pretty good. What I've done with this is I've got his head turning this way, but I've got his jaw leaning this way, right? So we have this effect, right? A bit of drag on his jaw, right? As he's kind of like shaking his head to himself. So watch what happens with his eyes, right? Could hold you to living, right? He's looking up and he's glancing. There's a slow glance above him, right? As if there's a higher power that they're both answering to. Rather than talking about the mouth shape, right, I'd rather talk about this secondary action. So while he's looking, and now he's closed his eyes, but look, he's patting him lovingly on the head. Almost half a minute of talking, right, in one shot, with full-blown character animation. and it ain't easy, but hopefully that's explained to you the process of how to tackle something at a very high level in a professional standard, as we're building this pro archive of the Real Animator Training Library.
So it appears that another soul has come to me in search of the riddle of death. Very well then. Which death shall it be? Yes, it shall indeed be a very good death. Nay, a great death. A death that makes existence worthy of life itself.
I'm going to take you in through each shot of this, and I'm going to explain to you why. They say that the eyes are the window to the soul. And what is he saying in the dialogue? So it appears that another soul has come to me. So he's almost like imprisoned with prison bars. So you see how this is what dictates my choice of shot composition, not am I within the rule of thirds or the golden triangle. Now you can immediately see that I'm framing within the frame. He opens his hand to create a triangle, and again we have got a circle of his eye, and also the pattern on him also helps other shapes. So we've got the circle of his eye within this diamond within a triangle, which creates a very nice piece of imagery. Also, we want to think about, remember I talk about symbolism, the Illuminati or enlightened symbol, triangle with an eye in it. We've got an open hand that symbolizes that you don't have anything, and then the closed hand. When a newborn is born on earth, they're holding on to life. Here, you've got an open hand that has something. What is the open hand holding? Death. Although it's holding the skull, it's symbolic that his hand is open and it's dead. It's holding death. And the minute it crushes that skull and it seemingly has nothing except for the cloth and the remains of whatever was in the skull, it actually has life because it's come and possessed into this guy here. If you want to look in terms of the direction of the flow of the scene, the hand is traveling away from his face, traveling screen right, and continues to move screen right and comes in from screen left. Then as we look here, we see the hand traveling back from screen right, and then the camera moves towards the direction where the hand was going. So we're continuing the direction of the hand in this conversation, which then brings in the skull. Now as the hand is coming back and talking back to him, he's lifting this hand, and the 180 degree line, its axis is rotating this way with the camera pan. What I have here is I have now a guide. So this is the building of the set. So this won't be in your film, but I have taken some time to show you how to build a set, because it's important, because it helps you with orientation. Curved line, just making the space around it like that. If this we were talking about tone, this would all be kind of black and the skull would be white. So that is a way that we can do a little bit of art direction using lights and darks, brightness and contrast, exposure and underexposure, exposure level. We've highly exposed the characters because we want them to read. We're not thinking about shadow on the character's body yet. As I talked about this, I talked about the different kinds of editing. I talked about continuity editing, spatial editing, and temporal editing, the classic Hollywood editing, right? I also talked about a Soviet montage editing. So this is all staging. So we're taking everything. We're taking props. We're taking lighting. We're taking costume. We're taking angles and framing. Even in one image, we want to try and immediately say this is what it is. So that's what, the flashy word for it is mise en scene. But this to animators we know as the law of staging. This is the law that we have not really touched on in Real Animator Training, and I'm now feeling so empowered as it's so obvious as it's come on to me as I've wanted to make this lecture on storyboarding dialogue. It is storyboard, the law of staging, because that's essentially what we have covered in these 7 lectures. How to stage a scene, understanding the tools that we're going to use to stage that scene. This has been an absolutely amazing lecture series for the Pro Archive of the Real Animator Training Library. I hope you've learned a lot from it.